Well, good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone here. See the seats are being filled. Judging from what I saw last night at the party, I'm kind of surprised people actually showed up this morning. I hope everyone had a good breakfast and got some good sleep, because we're going to talk about how Windows 8 is simplifying the devices pairing and discovery and pairing for wireless and networking devices. And this is exciting from our point of view because this is our life. This is what we work on. My name's Dave Roth. I'm a lead program manager for the Plug and Play team in Windows. My team's been very busy working on enhancing Plug and Play to do a bunch of things, fast device install, things like this. Very exciting. But also we're working on an infrastructure to enable the discovery and pairing of devices over multiple transports. And I'm here today with my esteemed colleague, Jeffrey.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Chen. I'm a senior program manager on devices and networking experience team. I also joined Microsoft for 12 years, and it has always been my passion to really improve the end user experience, especially when using software. This is going to be my second Windows release. I'm very excited, and being our honor and privilege being here to share what's new in Windows 8 with you.
So Jeffrey and I are going to take our collective 24 years of experience at Microsoft, and we're going to take you on a journey. It's a journey for most of you that began just a few days ago, and you started learning about all the different experiences that Windows 8 is bringing. And those experiences include new device experiences. And for a lot of devices, that experience starts with the user first discovering and pairing with them. And if you're in this room right now, that means you know what I'm talking about. We're talking about UPnP devices. On the network, we're talking about Bluetooth devices, Wi-Fi Direct, things like this. So Jeffrey and I are going to walk you through what Windows 8 is doing to enhance this bootstrapping experience for your customers, for those who are purchasing your devices, those who are going to go and use your devices with Windows. We're going to walk you through what Windows 8 is doing differently. There's a new device pairing experience and a pairing model. We're going to show you what that experience looks like, and we're going to give you kind of the run-through of what your customers are going to experience with this. And we're also going to show you what you can do to make sure that your devices plug into the system in the most effective way so you can get the best possible experience. So with Windows 8, we are introducing all sorts of great new experiences. You've seen them over the past several days, but one of the experiences you've probably noticed the most has been the slate you got. So everyone, you've got the slate and you've started playing with it, right? Yes, and the question I've got for you, though, is when you guys grabbed the slate and you ripped it out of the box and you started playing with it a couple days ago, how many of you actually took out the Bluetooth keyboard and actually tried pairing with it? Any? Well, not too many. And that actually makes sense, because the slate itself, well, it's pretty much fully functional. You really don't need an external keyboard unless you're a power typer or something. But for those of you who did do it, what you saw was one of many components that we've added to Windows 8 to make the discovering and pairing experience simplified and great. And I'm trusting that all of you guys said, wow, this is a great discovery and pairing experience. But nonetheless, the reason we're doing this, the reason that simplifying discovery and pairing is so very important for us, is because we've gotten just reams of feedback from users and usability studies and anecdotally and friends and family and all sorts of information from people telling us that pairing a device is hard. Discovering a device is hard. And that makes sense. Because if you think of all the users out there, your customers, my mother, when she calls me on the phone saying, hey, Dave, I just got a brand new network printer. This is great. How do I make this work? I have to spend long hours explaining UPnP and SSDP and web services and, well, Mom, you have to make sure it goes into pairing mode. She says, pairing mode, what's this? So all these issues that your customers are going through are because they don't understand the technical parts, and they shouldn't have to. I mean, when you drive your car, do you really need to know what the pistons are doing and what the carburetor is doing, or, boy, showing my age, the fuel injectors are doing? Probably not. You probably just want to get from one point to the next. And so that's what we're trying to do. So we're trying to make that easier for my mother. That's my bias, but for your customers as well. And so for you, making it simplified is good too. Because for every one of my mothers out there who are actually having trouble pairing, that's going to yield a support call. And that's also going to yield someone who finally gets frustrated and takes the printer or the device back to wherever they purchased it. So you have higher rates of returns. So when we in Windows 8, when we make discovery of your devices very simple and the pairing mechanism very simple, that's goodness for everyone.
So as Dave called out, the challenges in this problem space has been phenomenal. So in Windows 8, we step back and then we really ask ourselves hard questions. How we can do or what we would do to improve and address these issues. In Windows 7, we have this notion of pairing, means persisting users' intention to use a device. In Windows 8, we ask ourselves, can we try to push that concept further? Can we be more smart of knowing users' intention ahead of the time? So we came to this conclusion, say, perhaps in Windows 8, we want to redefine what pairing means in this software world. So we came to this conclusion, pairing in Windows 8 means Windows pair a device for you as soon as you express a clear intention to Windows. Imagine that, I open a box, say this Epson printer, it's shipped from online retailer, open it, I'm excited, turn on the power, and plug in the Ethernet cable into the router. We think that actually is a pretty clear intention that the user want to use that printer at some point in time. Okay, so we are making an assumption here, and follow me through this thought process. Likewise, as you've been heard, you heard the keynotes by Mike and Jolo. We have this awesome new NFC-based proximity framework built into the Windows. Again, we ask ourselves, can we push the envelope to further define the pairing become when you have a device, especially handheld device, in your hand, wave around your new shiny Windows 8 PC, Windows sense that as a clear intention that you want to interact that device with the PC, and we pair for you. So here, Dave and I, we are very proudly to announce today, in Windows 8, device pairing means we are going to automatically install and set up network devices for your customers. Also, Windows 8 going to leverage the proximity platform we built into it and enable this tap gesture-based tap to pair. And as Dave mentioned, we are on a journey to bring you through. So let me go to the next session to do some demo for you. Okay, make sure I click the right button. Okay, so first, I'm going to show you the improvements we made into Windows 8 for users who want to manually discover and install a device in Windows 8 PC. Let me dock it back, therefore you can see the screen. I just realized, hey, it went black. All right. Okay, so since all of you got this interesting, Samsung Slate, I'm going to use what you have in the box as a demonstration. This is the start menu you're familiar with. Now, you probably also noticed there's a control panel button. And in this control panel, as the name applies, this is where users do all the settings, whether it's a system setting or it's user-specific settings here. As you scroll through, there is a device views that shows that all the devices that are already installed in this, with this PC. Now, when I say installed, it can be means it's a USB plug-and-play device. As you see here, there's a generic PMP monitor. I didn't even know it exists until I dug it here, and with this generic HDMI output, as well as some other systems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to pair this keyboard with this slate. First of all, of course, I want to turn on the power and make the keyboard into the discoverable mode. Then I'm clicking on Add a Device. Now you will notice this is similar to what we have in Windows 7 for adding a device. However, you don't see a separate button called Add a Printer, because one of the improvements we're making is this is the single place that user need to know and need to come to. And in this one place, user can install any devices across transport technologies. So here you go. I see the name resolution. It's coming back, and that's the Samsung keyboard. Now it's going through the Bluetooth in-band, doing the link exchange, and now prompt me with the pairing passcode. So I'm going to just follow it through 09692. My hangover doesn't help, but anyway, I finished. All right, so I just finished entering the passcode, and here you go. It's paired.
So I see a lot of things happening here, Jeffrey. What is it that's taking place?
Yes, that's a good question, Dave. You see why it's taking a little bit more time, because in fact a lot of things is happening in the background, including pulling down the driver metadata package and potentially a tailored application that is written in the Metro style. Therefore, from end user perspective, it's one-stop shopping. As soon as you pair a device, it's ready for you. All right.
Fantastic.
Oh, wait. Just in case people question,
There we go.
it was a fake one. So it works. All right.
That's pretty cool. I'm really excited to see that we've got a really good pairing experience here. But I do have a question. Can we do that even better?
Sure. So let me switch it to. You like to challenge, huh? All right. So let me switch to my Lenovo tablet here. The next demo I would like to show everyone is the automatic setup. As I mentioned earlier, automatic setup will detect users' intention to automatically discover and set up network devices. So what I have here is Western Digital HD Live Hub. It's a digital media renderer. It's DRNA certified, as well as Epson Artisan 800 printer sitting there. Now, of course, because of the complicated network environment, I brought my own router. So what I'm going to do is take you to the same place, showing you what has been installed. Okay, here is my Lenovo. Some things that make sense, some doesn't make sense, simply because I have some evaluation components installed here. So, but clearly, you don't see the Western Digital media box nor the Epson printer yet. All right, so I'm going to just simply plug in, make sure I don't plug in that gentleman's Ethernet cable here. All right, so good. So this goes to Epson, and the white one goes to the Western Digital media box. So as soon as it's plugged in, and of course you can do this through the Wi-Fi network, the device now are provisioning themselves onto the Wi-Fi network, including adding the profile. And in no time, you probably saw that actually happened very fast. There was nothing for me to do, and I simply joined the devices onto the network.
So the machine, the Windows 8 was actually noticing that you just plugged a new device in, and it assumes that because you plugged it in, you probably want to use it.
That's exactly
There we
right.
go.
So, as a proud father showing my son, say, hey, dude, see, I got a new, our living room now get a new high definition media player. Let me show you what it looks like. So remember, so far I have not touched any UI yet, and now I'm in a tailored application. Let's say, hey, let's pick this City Bean commercial. Now, instead of playing locally here, I'm going to go to the device charms. And in the previous big picture talk, you probably heard about this. The device charm, same as other charms, are the contract area where this particular application would like to associate with. In this case, this application is telling Windows, say, hey, show me all DRNA devices, or hey, show me all printers, right? And here, logically say, okay, well, there is a new Western Digital DRNA just installed. Let me present it as one of the targetable device to interact with. So I'm going to just select this Western Digital box and make sure I click the play button. And by the way, all right. So one thing we forgot to rehearse is to adjust the volume. Sorry about that. So what you just saw here is it play a media player file in my laptop, streamed it to the media box here through DMA protocol, and it's just a regular HDMI output to the TV. So that is, we call a better device pairing experience. In fact, I hope it's way better than the manual setup.
So that is pretty cool. So if I bring home a new TV and put it on my network at home, bam, all of my family's PCs automatically have this installed. That is a lot better. I like that. But you guys have been working really hard over in your team. We've been working really hard in my team, and I gotta ask, can we even do better than that?
All right. So this morning, Dave and I were talking about we are still a little bit nervous because we do have additional demo to show, but given where it is, it's prototype. So I just want to set the expectation right that what you are about to see is world debut. So here in my hand is the world first mouse that has NFC proximity tag implemented. And inside this NFC tag, it contains the pairing information in the form of Bluetooth out-of-band data blob. And this data blob, when I associate and invoke the reader, NFC reader on a computer, this data blob gets transmitted through the NFC channel. And Windows, we're going to talk more in depth about, then Windows take this data blob, parse it, pass down to the proper wireless provider, in this case is the Bluetooth provider, and do the in-band pairing. So for the gentleman who has video or a camera, I just want to show you very quickly. This is the NXP PN544 evaluation board we are using for testing. And this evaluation board, essentially, it's the NFC reader. So it's a USB dongle. It's kind of cool. Every time I carry this, walk around in the Redmond campus, people always stop me and say, dude, what's that? I say, hey, top secret. I cannot tell you. All right, so what I'm going to do is, I want to show you that mouse is not yet being installed, right? Back to this device view in the control panel. So you're about to see when I interact, oh, forgot to turn on the power. Okay, wait for the initial cycling. This is not part of our experience. I just need to make sure it's power on. So with a close proximity, user is prompted and say, hey, Windows discovered this new device. Do you want to pair with it? And you notice I actually say yes, right? Or I can choose to ignore if this is an invitation that I do not recognize. And in no time, here is the mouse wiggling on my hand. Hey, come on. All right.
All right,
cool.
so
it works.
so you're right. That is probably the best experience.
All
Just
right.
being able to take a device,
Yes.
tap it, and then it's already paired. No work on the user's part other than tapping, of course, and turning it on.
Yeah, and that's what we mean by simplifying the device setup experience to the extreme. Simply be able to detect, in some cases, even predict users' intention to use it with it. Let me switch to PowerPoint.
There we go.
Great.
So we're going to walk you through a real quick system overview of discovery and pairing, kind of giving you an idea of what it is that we're putting into Windows 8 to enable these types of experiences.
So think about there are three pillars to support what you just saw. There are built-in experiences. And think of the built-in experiences is what your customers see, as well as, of course, what Windows users see. And for all devices, you get this for free. Those are the inbox built-in experiences. And I will explain further later. Now, support services means the enabling components that is in the Windows to complete the action or the scenarios that you saw. And think of this way is like for device makers, these are the components that will enable the experience you intended to and with your proper participation. And the new programming model really is the collection of APIs where you can take the advantage to drive tailored experiences for your devices. What I'm referring to here is you can use software programming tool to write Metro-style applications, and that will really differentiate your devices from others. So inbox experiences in Windows 8 for discovery, first and foremost, for the manual installation, we think the discovery can be further enhanced by leveraging some of the meta that come from a radio signal. For example, the long list that you saw here, and some of those devices are actually the phone in your pocket. But why I could quickly find the keyboard I was trying to pair with, because we leveraged the IS, or we call the inquiry state, as well as the Bluetooth radio signal. Therefore, the ranking is sorted that in a most prominent and relevant way to the user who is looking for it, as well as we sort it by protocol. So for example, some of the transports, say TCP/IP printer or Active Directory printer, those doesn't necessarily have such a signal strength metadata that we can latch on. Therefore, we sort it accordingly in the group fashion. And also the proximity tap and setup or tap to pair you saw, there is a consistent invitation user model. No matter this is a Logitech mouse or it's a Microsoft mouse, as long as you plug in into our proximity enabling module, you will get this consistent notification. you are not required to write additional code for example, popping up that notification UI. And for pairing, in Windows 8, we strive for really make the pairing a less scary. I'm bad on using the negative, but make it a more lightweight experience. And what I mean by that is, we make all the UI description more understandable. When user make mistake, right, we don't make them feel bad, right? We allow user to retry, right? At the end of the day, as long as user has the right credential, they have all the rights to pair it successfully. And also, as the technology emerged, there are more and more multiple transport devices. A good example would be this Epson printer. It has the traditional USB bus. It can also connect it through WPS and also Wi-Fi Direct. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say Wi-Fi Direct. This one doesn't have Wi-Fi Direct. And also WSD, right? So in a case like this, in the old way, user actually need to go through each of the transport to complete the pairing. So in Windows 8, we combine all these tasks into a one step. And Windows 8 will attempt to pair with multiple transports as many as possible. And for management, the relevant softwares are downloaded as soon as a successful pairing occurs. So, that kind of give us a good collection of inbox experience that does not require device makers to make any additional investment. You get this for free. Support services, let me talk about the automatic setup. The demo you just saw, this feature, automatic setup, support devices that is PMPX over UPnP. That's one of the two transport it supports. The other transport it supports is the WSD. And also this component, think about this is, right, it's a Win32 component running, running constantly in Windows 8. It also constantly listens to the new device arrival on a private non-domain network. So with all that, right? So it's a component that built in deep in the Windows that you can take advantage of. However, as I mentioned earlier, with your proper participation, you get this experience. Proximity tap and pair, or tap to pair, obviously it's built on the Windows 8 proximity framework. For the demo you saw, we particularly using NFC as the proximity transport. NFC has a well-defined NDEF message type. And with this NDEF message, we are able to encapsulate the pairing information that are defined by other wireless transport body like SIG, Bluetooth SIG. So the component in Windows 8, we are able to handle this incoming message, parse it, hand it off to the proper wireless provider, and do the proper pairing and binding. Vertical pairing is specific to simplify the workflow for Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi Direct. So as soon as a device joins onto a network, it is paired. That is how simple we would like to enable this experience. So as you see, we added Bluetooth Low Energy, or Bluetooth LE, Wi-Fi Direct, and Active Directory transport as an additional collection into Windows 8. These additional transports are get support natively in Windows 8, in addition to what we have in Windows 7. Programming model, think of, is really the paradigm of when a device is paired in Windows 8, it is treated as any other device, just like a USB device. And what I mean by that is we are shifting the thinking of the pairing from Windows 7 to in Windows 8 say, hey, we want user to tell us, what are the devices that are relevant to your everyday use. And for those devices, you pair with it. Therefore, think of the different model here. In Win 7, a typical device provider may write a SSDP query, blast it out to the entire network, say, hey, who is there? Who is there? Oh, you're a Western Digital box. Cool. Oh, you're a TCP/IP printer, whatever, right? So, and come back, say, hey, here's all the devices. Now, you, application, do something, right? It's a massive overhead, if you will. So in Windows 8, our new pairing model really is say, okay, user already told us what devices they want to use, and we already pair with it. So in the case of application, the example I just used, it will be a much simpler and performed query, say, hey, just give me all the paired devices. And the way, by doing so, it's more targeted, it's in context of what the application is trying to accomplish. So I think that's a lot of information, and David and I, we've been kind of say, hey, come on, we need to have a better way to show this information. So Dave, what do you say we show this slide to show the workflow?
Absolutely. Thanks,
Great.
Jeffrey. So want to show you how it works. So Jeffrey kind of explained the different parts of the model, the inbox user experiences and the support services and the actual programming model. But what I want to show you is just what the workflow is. What is it that Windows 8 is doing under the covers when you see someone actually pairing something, or when magically your new DLNA TV comes online in Windows. And it all starts with the new Metro devices view in the control panel. So this particular flow I'm going to demonstrate and show how a user would do it manually. For example, let's say a user is going to pair with a Bluetooth headset or maybe a cell phone or whatever the case. She would go to the devices view in the control panel, and she would go and hit the Add a Device link. Now this is going to start device discovery. And the new component, as I was mentioning earlier, in the plug-and-play team's been working on this discovery and pairing infrastructure. What we do is we talk to multiple protocols and go out and look for any type of device that matches. Now this is kind of important because we're only going to show the user devices which can be paired. So if you have a device that's not pairable, it's a router or whatever the case is, she won't see that. She'll just see all the devices for which she can pair. And that includes, if she's already paired with a device, we're not going to show it to her again. What's the point? She's already paired with it. So the discovery goes, she'll see all the devices. As you can see in the UI there on the right, she'll see, let's say in this particular example, 2 devices, a printer and a TV. And now she's going to pair with it. So she selects one of them. The discovering and pairing component goes up to the device and interacts just depending on what the protocol is. If it's Bluetooth, we'll interact and do, let's say, a key exchange. Or if it's a UPnP, we'll connect to it and fetch metadata. Whatever the protocol requires, that's what will happen. The device responds with whatever data it has to respond for an official pairing. And then we add this to a new unified pairing database. Internally in Windows, we're going to take all the different pairing information and put it in one place. That makes it super easy for us to manage. So therefore, you'll have a big database containing Bluetooth information and UPnP information and web services information and all sorts of groovy stuff. And this is actually important because it's the connection between our pairing database and plug and play. When you add another entry to the pairing database, that's going to trigger a plug and play response. Plug and play is going to create, if you're familiar with plug and play, it's going to create a dev node for which a driver can be loaded. And at this point, your device, your UPnP device, your web services device, whatever the device is that you've just paired, officially now looks like a regular Windows device. Plug and play will do what plug and play does. It goes and checks to see if there's a driver already resident in the driver store. If so, it'll apply it. And at this point, it'll also talk to the new device setup component. And the device setup component does a bunch of things, and it does them very quickly, all at the same time. One of the things it does is it goes up to Windows Update, asks, is there an updated driver? Or if there wasn't a driver locally, it'll go and fetch one. The next thing it's going to do, it's going to go and talk to a special service in the sky we have, which provides metadata for all these devices. Device manufacturers will be defining metadata, and that'll include things like photorealistic icons, include information about what the device is, the device categories, all that great stuff. But one of the important things about that is in Windows 8, that metadata will also identify any Metro-style device app. And that's important because if your metadata includes a link to an actual app, the device setup system will go and fetch it for you. So you get your automatic installation of your device software. And in the end, you now officially have a device that's interacting with the system as you would expect. No different than if you plugged in a USB device. So implementing support in your devices to enable all this is actually pretty easy. As Jeffrey said, we have UX affordances. We have actually inbox affordances for your users. They're going to get the discovery mechanism. They're going to get the pairing system, our internal database, all that stuff. That comes for free. If you guys make just a Bluetooth device, you get that for free. If you have a UPnP device, you get that for free. No work on your part. Although, you can take better advantage of the services that we're offering. And those services are things like extending plug and play to UPnP or web services using PnPX. Jeffrey briefly mentioned this thing we call vertical pairing, which is a great way to bootstrap your Wi-Fi device and pair it all at the same time. We also support multiple transports, as Jeffrey pointed earlier. For example, USB, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, all these different transports on a single device. And of course, the very cool proximity support. So the first and foremost I really want to point out is plug and play. To extend plug and play to the network, we have something we call plug and play extensions, or PnPX. Now this has been around since Vista, and it's very simple to implement. Most devices, most UPnP or web services devices can literally be provisioned with PnPX support by simply changing some XML metadata. Literally, that's all there is to it. The XML metadata basically gives the equivalent of a plug-and-play hardware ID. If you're familiar with plug-and-play or hardware IDs, then this will make sense. If not, essentially think of it as a unique identifier so that Windows can identify that device as a plug-and-play device. That metadata also contains some other information, such as device categories. So when we discover it, we know what that device is and what kind of icon to show and how to categorize it. And it's got some other things that are interesting to the system to enable things like loading plug-and-play drivers for your device, enabling autoplay. So if you have a UPnP device that when it comes online, you need it to launch a Metro app, you can have a driver package that loads and registers for autoplay. Also, as Jeffrey pointed out, in the programming model, these are PnP devices. So your applications can literally just call into the same APIs you would expect to, let's say, enumerate all of the hard drives on the machine or enumerate all of the webcams. It's the same thing. You call in, make an API call, and basically say, show me all the UPnP devices, or better yet, show me all the DLNA media renderer devices. So adding it is pretty simple. We have a link on our website that has the PnPX extension specification. If you're implementing UPnP or WSD devices, I encourage you to add PnPX support. This is also how we enable the whole bootstrapping process for automatic discovery and installation. Vertical pairing is very exciting to me. And the reason why is back in Windows 7, when we were first starting with the whole restructuring the pairing mechanism, we stumbled upon a problem, and that was device manufacturers who implement Wi-Fi's WPS protocol. That's a protocol that enables you to remotely configure Wi-Fi settings on a device. We ran into a usability problem. It's one thing for a user to go through the process of discovering the Wi-Fi device and provisioning it. That's typing in a PIN, selecting the network profile you want to submit, and doing all that. But that doesn't actually pair the device. That doesn't pair the UPnP or WSD device with Windows. That just put the device on the network. That's all it did. And so users became very confused when we did usability studies saying, hey, I did this pairing ceremony, why can't I see my device? And so it dawned on us that, wow, well, we have a layering problem. We can provision the Wi-Fi layer, the lower layer, and now it's on the network, but there's a higher layer, and that's the UPnP or WSD layer. How do we pair with that? So we implemented this thing we call vertical pairing. When you pair with the device, you pair the whole stack. And it's actually pretty straightforward to implement. If you support WPS, either in Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi Direct, you can extend it using some of the Microsoft vendor extensions. And there's a white paper that talks about how to do this. It's pretty straightforward. We'll do all the heavy lifting for you. All you need to do is add the vendor extension which identifies your device's protocol, UPnP or web services, and its unique ID. Multiple transport support. Now, a lot of you guys are implementing devices with multiple transports. USB, Wi-Fi, wired Ethernet. Some are putting Bluetooth on devices. When you have multiple transports, that means a user can pair with it multiple ways. Unfortunately, historically, Windows would see one pairing of that device as unique and separate from a different pairing. So you can imagine if I had this device, this printer here on the network, and I paired with it so I can print to it over my network, it'll come up as one printer icon. But if later I plug it in through USB, because let's say my network's down, now Windows will show me two icons for it. It's going to show me the USB printer and the network printer. Now that's a problem for users because users scratch their heads and say, what's this? I have two printers? Where did this come from? Is someone getting onto my network? I'm confused. So in Windows 8, we're glomming these things together to show the user one device regardless of how many transports it's paired with. This makes management an awful lot easier. If you remove a device, if you unpair it, we'll unpair across all the transports. If you pair it, we'll attempt to pair across all transports. So you can imagine a device, let's say a cell phone that's on your Wi-Fi network, but it's also a Bluetooth cell phone. When you go to pair it, we'll attempt to pair the Bluetooth part of the Bluetooth transport of that phone, but we'll also attempt to pair it with the UPnP or the web services aspect over the networking at the same time. User sees only one icon, user's happy, everything's great. But to do this, we need your help. Because there's no way for Windows to know the same device over one transport is the same device over a different transport, unless you tell us. And that's what the container ID is. Container ID was implemented back in Windows 7, so it's not new. There's lots of information we have up on our website describing it. And it's implemented on a transport-specific basis. So USB implements it one way, Bluetooth will implement it another way, UPnP, web services implement yet another way. So I encourage you to, if your device supports multiple transports, to make sure that all the transports identify the same container ID value. If USB is identifying a container ID of 1234, UPnP should also say, I am container ID 1234. That way we can show the user just one object, one icon, one management node. Now proximity support is new, and as Jeffrey was pointing out, it's an extremely great way for users to use your devices. If you have a mouse, seriously think about it. If it's just a matter of tapping my mouse and now it's paired, how much easier can that be? So for devices that are either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi Direct, we have proximity support. There is huge encouragement for everyone to take advantage of this. And this is a matter of implementing a NFC sensor on your device and wiring it up with the NFC media type 2. That will encapsulate the actual data payload that's used for out-of-band provisioning. The data payload is going to be defined by whichever transport you're using. So Bluetooth is defining this. The Wi-Fi specifications will also be defining this. So depending on which transports you're using, we encourage you to support proximity pairing and implement it as the actual specifications come more solid. So what I do want to do is kind of emphasize something here. For network devices, please, for the sake of your users, implement PMPX support. And also, if you do Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi Direct, also support vertical pairing. It makes such a big difference for our end customers. And for Bluetooth devices, Please add the Bluetooth ID support, which is the device ID support, which helps us with the container ID values so we can do the right thing for your devices. That's being specified in the device ID v1.4 and higher, although it says 1.3, it should be 1.4. And that specification is being ratified, so that should be ratified imminently. So please go in and do that. And also make sure you do add NFC support. One of the big things that we do hear a lot of is, regardless of all the work we do, regardless of all the heavy lifting that Windows does to make the user's pairing experience great, we run into some very simple mistakes that users run into. And these mistakes are often due to things like computer name or the device name. So for example, my mother calls me up and says, Dave, I just got a brand new printer. She puts it on the network. This is a true story. She puts it on the network and she can't find it. And I'm saying, well, Mom, long distance to Michigan, over the phone, Mom, what do you see when you go to pair the device? She says, well, I see my such and such device, I see this other device, and I see this device, I don't really know what it is, but its name is 12:44:AC:. I said, Mom, that's the MAC address. And she says, MAC address? What's a MAC address? So I, of course, being the technical geek I am, I go into this long, elaborate discussion, and of course she shuts me up and says, how do I pair this? So please, when you name your devices, don't use something as esoteric or vague as a MAC address or something. If your device is a Fabricam Model 123, name it Fabricam Model 123. The user's going to see it and say, hey, that's the device I just brought home from the store. That's what I want to pair with. Entering the pairing mode. This has been one of the hardest things that I have had to deal with customers, and especially in usability studies. Because it's one thing to make pairing easy. It's one thing to make it very obvious and intuitive, let's say in Windows. It's another thing for someone to just magically know, I have to hit a button on the bottom of my mouse. Or better yet, I have to hit a button on the bottom of my mouse and hold it for 5 seconds. Or I have to go to my phone and somehow navigate through some menu system 16 layers deep. Once again, true story. We're doing usability studies, and one of the devices we were using, the user was expected to literally understand 16 layers of menu options, very technical menu options, just to get into a mode that they can pair the device. For the average consumer, this is too much. The average consumer really just wants to use a device. They paid $200 or however much for a device. They just want to use it. So when you have a pairing mode you have to go into, Wi-Fi provisioning, like the WPS provisioning modes or Bluetooth modes, make it as simple as possible. The easier, the better. One of the ways to do this is doing something that we refer to as auto-detective transports. So this printer right here, for example, it has multiple transports, as we keep talking about. One of the things it could do is when it boots up is first check, do I have a USB connection? If not, do I have an Ethernet connection? If not, am I configured for an access point through Wi-Fi, and am I on that Wi-Fi access point? Am I connected? If not, well, the user turned you on for a reason. Go into provisioning mode. Go into WPS mode. Maybe the user wants to pair with you. And if the user doesn't pair in 5 minutes, fine. Shut it down. But the point is, the goal here is to make it simpler for users to use. There's no point in trying to get users to understand technical details if really all they want to do is print or stream content to their device. And of course, proximity pairing, we can't push that out enough. It's very cool, very good experience for the end user.
So as takeaway, I think we are doing very well on the time. We would like you to take away from this session to really feel inspired in terms of these great new discovering and pairing experiences we build into Windows 8. With your help, we together can reduce the frustration from our customers as well as to boost their brand loyalty with your devices. And of course, by doing that, they greatly reduce your support cost, right? So really, I encourage everyone to keep in mind that in Windows 8, now we have this automatic setup. Now we enable the proximity tap to pair. And how to implement it, as Dave mentioned, these are all good takeaways and implementation considerations that we would like your help to make our customers life easier and happier.
Right. So there are a bunch of related sessions throughout the rest of today and tomorrow. Some that I think have already happened, and I'm sure those will be available online. A lot of these have to do with the different transports that are available, Bluetooth, USB. I want to point out USB because of the container ID support. Even though we really don't have to discover and pair USB devices, that's implicit with the fact you plugged it in. But nonetheless, it would be worth your while to go and check out some of these sessions. And we also have other information online. We've got, as we were saying earlier, the vertical pairing white paper and the PMPX specification. Also, there's a bunch of Bluetooth references and proximity and tap and pairing we have a white paper on. And of course, there will be, our teams will be monitoring the forums. So if you guys have questions and you want to post them to the forums, please do. If you just put 286, which is this session number, in the title, that can flag Jeffrey and my team so we can actually identify and say, hey, that's pairing, let us take a look at it. Other than that, we'd like to thank you and open up for any questions. The question being if the build on the tablet, correct, or also on the download, the developer preview, whether that supports the NFC proximity pairing.
Yes, the short answer is yes. The proximity framework is built into the build you have. Because it's a framework, so it does require additional driver. In this case, depends on what proximity reader or manufacturer of your choice. It will require additional driver in order to get the reader running. But the rest of the experience you see, including you tap, the Windows response to it with the UI, all these are building in the machine you have.
Yeah.
Multiple transport support file systems that work with file system correctly, so OneDrive, maybe if it's Wi-Fi as an NAS or a USB then or something, look at this, show up the same drive each time.
That's actually a good question. Whether multiple drives, for example, to a NAS box would qualify as separate transports. In that particular case, you actually have one pairing with the actual physical device. What you do with that, how you mount the drives or whatnot, would be different. So in that case, there's really only one transport at play. The UPnP, CIFS, whatever the actual protocol in place is.
A question about the pairing before login. Let's say I bought the desktop computer with Bluetooth keyboard and mouse. And how do I pair before the system even got a login or properly set up?
Sure. We choose not to show an additional experience to that respect. The question is, how does a user to pair with a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse prior to logging to a Windows session? To address that issue, as we go through the beta milestone, we will start reveal we call the HID or keyboard and mouse pairing during the UBI, during out-of-box experience of the Windows. And that will enable a user, say, assuming we have some OEMs on the seat here, you can be able to ship your new PC with a keyboard and mouse without that additional USB Bluetooth transmitter. And because as soon as user open up the Windows 8 PC and go through the UBI or out-of-box experience, there will be an experience to enable user to pair that keyboard and mouse during the UBI time. The specific question to proximity pairing during lock-on screen, the short answer is no. We had some security concern. When you think about pairing a keyboard before you log in, what does it mean, right? So there are some analysis being done that we not necessarily would like to enable that experience. Thank you for the question.
So if I wrote a Metro-style app, which want to do maybe something other than print to my device, which I haven't paired yet, can I invoke your pairing scenario flow from my Metro app, Metro-style app?
So the question is whether you can invoke the pairing wizard from
Yes.
a Metro app.
Exactly.
You want to take this?
Okay.
So I think the short answer is no. We explicitly try to ensure that users are in control of that. What we don't want is applications kind of taking control of the pairing experience. So the concern is that we have one particular place users know to go to for all of their pairing needs, kind of like a one-shop stop, right? And so for other applications to start, having other alternate routes to that one mechanism, our usability studies have shown that users become confused. What does this mean? You want me to pair? What does that mean? Because when I go over here, that's where I pair. And so from a Metro app, there wouldn't be a way to do that. You could advise your users to go into the control panel devices view.
So in other words, this is the only place that you can invoke that pairing wizard. That puts you to the assumption like the user have to prepare their devices whenever they bought it first.
Right.
They can't just use their application and realize, yes, I can maybe send this to my other device now. I haven't paired it, but
Right.
can I just invoke it right now?
Yeah, I think what you described is correct. And our design concept, to think about the other way around is we would like to provide this inbox consistent experience, let user know where to go to pair with it, and consider this is the first time management task. And nobody likes the management task. There's a reason that, my mom will never want to go to control panel, right? So in this way, we basically say, hey, there is a first-time management task where you need to get the things set up the first time. And once you set up, from the Metro-style application perspective, you simply call to the contract that you want to interact with. Therefore, we take the overhead of this management task away from your
Okay.
modern
Can I
application.
ask a second question? The transport that you currently support, like UPnP X or plug and play X, can you actually extend it to a protocol you haven't been supported?
So the question is whether we can extend plug and play to protocols other than UPnP and web services.
Yes.
Right now, the way that plug and play works is we only do respect and recognize UPnP and WSD. If there's a protocol that you're interested in, I'd like to have a chat and just find out what you're thinking. But we'd like to avoid some of the more non-device specific, like SMTP and things like this. But yeah, we only support UPnP.
But there's no way to write. I remember there's used to be you can write your own service provider for your PnPX. Is that still there?
That's actually a good question. One of my colleagues, Cam, he's here. Do you have any thought on that?
The question was whether you can extend plug and play X.
The PnPX service provider,
Right.
or whatever you call it.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's just it's built in.
Okay. So yeah, unfortunately, no. At this time, it's only built into UPnP and WSD.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
To continue with this question, can I provide the same information that proximity server provides in order to get paired with my own software file? For example, I don't know, I will do a camera recognize my printer and get from the web the information that I need for pairing. Can I write some kind of software that do this thing instead of implementing the actual NFC device?
So is the question whether or not you can do essentially the same thing that NFC tap to pair would be?
Yeah, to provide pair information from some other source, not
Right.
necessarily from a proximity server.
Right. So the question is whether we can use other sources other than NFC for the proximity tap to pair. I believe that we only support NFC today. Is that right?
Yes, the framework, proximity framework is built extensible. The experience we show specific tether and using the NFC. And the question is, can this be a different transport provider other than NFC? The short answer is the platform supports it. There may be more hurdles and more works for such scenario to be enabled. But the platform itself is flexible.
There is a white paper on proximity, and I believe there's a session, at least one session, that covers the proximity framework. It may be worth sitting through that.
And another thing worth to mention is the proximity tap-to-pair experience you saw, including the user notification UI. Right now, those are tailored to the provider that ship in Windows 8. And the provider we're talking about here is NFC.
Yeah.
Still about proximity, I asked the question to the global team if the NFC would be required, and they say no. So if somebody tries to pair a device and there's no proximity sensor, how are you gonna communicate that? They're gonna tap, nothing's gonna happen. So how can they know that their PC doesn't have NFC?
Yes, I think this is a great question. The question is, how does the customer know whether or not Windows 8 PC support proximity? We are not the best folks to speak for that, but my understanding of that is if a PC chooses to support proximity, there is a program that will require you to implement a touch mark. And the touch mark is a visual indication, depends on where the reader is located, show user say, hey, this machine has a spot that you may want to interact with. So that's the visual cue to tell user.
Gentleman at the microphone.
Yeah, is vertical pairing in Windows 8 going to be more automatic than Windows 7? Does the user still have to go to add a device to see devices that are ready to be paired? Or will they get some sort of notification about it?
So the plans that we have is similar support for that we had for Windows 7, where a device that's in WPS provisioning mode will be surfaced only in the added device wizard, the UX.
Okay.
Is that right? All right.
Is vertical pairing, will it support only WPS pin mode? Or is push button support going to be added?
So the support we have in Windows for WPS, that's a good question. The question being is whether or not WPS push button mode also supports vertical pairing. And I'm going to take a stab at the dark at this, as my other colleague, Yatharth, can better answer this. But my understanding is that Windows itself doesn't support the push button. That actually is a transaction between the device and the access point. And so in that case, we're out of the picture. Is that right? Kind of.
Kind of.
So
The answer is no.
I think the short answer is no. Is that right?
Yeah. From UI perspective, the vertical pairing does support pin entry. Push button is not a part of the built-in experience, if you will.
And I don't have a mic, so I apologize. I want to speak further. But there are two experiences with WPS. There is an experience with an access point and an experience with a device. For an access point, we support push button and pin.
Yeah,
For devices, we support pin only. For pipeline.
But for what it's worth, if you did use a push button for a device, and it's now on the network, if it's a PMPX device that automatic install and setup would support, you would effectively get that.
Our thing is we make devices, out of the box, we can make our devices in push button mode ready to join a network, but our users don't know that their routers have buttons.
Right.
So it'd be really nice if Windows would say, hey, you've got a device ready, just click here and that's it.
Right.
But it sounds like they're going to have to click add a device, then type in the pin that will be on the device.
On the device, right. It's a good question, though. Thank you.
I'm taking my notes for
Yes.
DCR.
So the question being, does automatic setup work in enterprise environment?
The thinking behind that is obviously it's all possible, right? It's about a design decision that we choose. For enterprise environments, say given it's a domain joined network, it can be easily be thousands of devices on a typical network. Then it comes down to become experience, issue, right? Is it a desirable experience that the first time you have a Windows 8 PC, like hundreds of printers get installed, right? The answer perhaps is no. So for this Windows 8 release in particular, we target for consumer home environment.
So do you have a policy to run it up?
It is possible, but it will be we will analyze to see how much exposure that we perhaps put into a KB article, etc. It's controlled through a reg key.
Anyone else? Yes.
How is the user experience in case of the same devices near the PC of the other? For example, my colleague has the same mouse like the
So the question is, what's the experience if you have, for example, two devices, let's say identical devices, in very close proximity, and the user goes to pair them? Is that what?
you need to pay.
Right. You're saying you're saying NFC pairing or
Because in the last example of mouse, it's not very, it's connected negative. But my question is, if there is another identical device near the PC, it's connected already device, full device, because there isn't a pay.
I think the question can be, so the question, if I understood correctly, is what happens when there are multiple nearby devices, they are already in this discoverable mode and all within the range or field of the proximity. Right. So really from technical perspective, you simply look at this reader, there is always a magnetic field, stronger field, and weaker field, right? So from a human perspective, perhaps, yes, I can put my phone and the mouse all at a very close nearby range. However, one of them going to be win in terms of getting that information passed down to the wire, right? So it just becomes the matter of how do we fail safe to prevent catastrophic failure, right? Or to provide a satisfied experience when there are multiple devices are trying to pair at the same time. So our design and the solution is we do tell users, say, hey, I found this blah, blah, blah. I found full device, or I found, this TV, I found that phone, right? So there is a visual notification say, hey, Windows found something. Let me know if this is something you are expecting, right? So the notification UI, unfortunately, in the demo, it went away too fast because I just click on it. My mouse happened to be it. But it can stay there, and the default timeout is 11 seconds. So during the 11 seconds, user can actually see, say, oh, this is full device or bar device, and choose to accept or not, right? And then from the design perspective, there is always one event coming after another, right? So we process the first event that comes into the proximity channel. And if user want to pair the other device, they simply probably move away further the first device and just simply tap the second device again.
Yes, but my question is in case of identical device, very similar. For example, my colleagues with the same mouse near of my PC, and could be have same device ID, same device name.
Right. I think it's important to point that the proximity that the device has to be within the near field communication, the sensor, is exceedingly short. It's very small. So it's where it's technically possible you could have two mice kind of competing within millimeters. Or
I think
so.
another angle to look at it is each mouse has a unique MAC address with Bluetooth, right? So,
Right.
true. Yeah, but in this case, because we say, hey, proximity is really the interactive, right? There is an interaction behind that. So there is always one mouse probably closer, the other is further away. I don't know if I answered your question. Identical names and category, yes. Yeah, and that is a typical factory problem we cannot simply solve, right? Say, in my lab, there are 200 mouse with identical name. Each has a different unique MAC address. How do we solve the user experience there?
If you want to meet us afterwards, we can kind of go into this a little further. I'd like to better understand the scenario you're thinking. Okay. Anything else? Anyone? Well, thank you for, one more. Let's go.
Okay, let's take the last one.
Yeah.
Do you expect the logo requirements to go beyond just for network printers, like require PNPX or require...
For network printers? I'm sorry, you're asking about the certification for network printers, specifically network printers. My understanding is the current certification requirements for networked printers is web services using the WS Print WSDL, and that has to be PNPX enabled. And if it's a Wi-Fi device, it has to support vertical pairing. All right. If you have more questions, feel free to meet us afterwards as we exit. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, for being here.